Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, December 20th, 2021 Elyria City Council meeting. At this time, I would ask, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you gave me the high sign. Good evening. Welcome to the Elyria City Council meeting for Monday, December 20th, 2021. At this time, I'd ask everyone to turn off their phones or turn them off into silent mode. We'll have a moment of reflective silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Clerk, can I have roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sierra.
Here.
Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Baird.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Keys.
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
All present.
Public hearings.
We have one. You are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held Monday, December 20th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in Council Chambers, second floor, Elyria City Hall, 131 Court Street, to consider the following. An ordinance amending Section 1131.02 Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone real property located at Ridge Street, Elyria, Ohio, from R-M-H Residential Multi-Household High-Density District to B-G Business General District.
Thank you. Are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? I declare this public hearing has been held.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending Section 1131.02 Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone real property located at Ridge Street, Elyria, Ohio, from R-M-H Residential Multi-Household High-Density District to B-G Business General District.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its third reading.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor of the passage signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-190. That's all public hearings.
Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sierra. Second by Ms. Simmons. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, City Council members. Just want to acknowledge for all those outgoing council members, it's been an honor serving with you. And to Councilman Baird, who's I hear that you're like Michael Jordan. It's like your third time retiring. I hear you just can't leave the game alone. But I think this one's this time. Yeah, I think this is the real one. So I definitely appreciate all your years of service, and looking forward to continuing to work with you. You're going to be serving on the CDC board, so we'll still be working together, but just want to acknowledge your service. And I want to thank the Community Development and Finance Committees for the work we got done last Monday. There's nothing really else on the agenda for me for tonight, so I'd ask if you don't mind if I'm excused, Council President, for tonight. And I wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Very good. Any questions for the mayor? Does anybody have any questions for the mayor? All right, very good, Mayor. Thank you. Safety Service Director, Mr. Brubaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of things. First of all, to echo Mayor Whitfield, I want to congratulate and thank Councilman Jesse, Councilwoman Keys, and Councilman Baird for the work that they've put in over the last number of years to move our city forward and to make it a better place. And I wish all three of you well in your next endeavors. Also, you've probably seen either on Facebook or on the signs on the door, due to a multitude of COVID cases within our own employment, we are reverting back to some different protocols for our employees. They will be masked up. They'll be separating vehicles. But the main one is here at City Hall. We are going back to trying to flush people into the utilities door and checking in the utilities to try to slow the flow of people coming in and out of City Hall. We also have some employees that will be working remotely due to COVID concerns within their departments, at least for the next couple weeks. We had an influx of positive cases over the weekend that came to my attention, as well as HR, so we're making some changes to the policies here at City Hall just to try to stay the flow of the COVID cases that are going on in our community. Our employees are a valuable piece to our puzzle that we do. They're the biggest value that we have, and having them getting sick and going down would be a detriment, so we're trying to protect them as well as the residents. And then finally, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays and look forward to 2022. And that's all I have at this time, Mr. President.
Any questions from Mr. Brubaker? Mr. Acera?
For you, are we still doing leaf pickup?
Leaf pickup effectively ended a week ago Friday on paper, but we are still having a truck running at least through next week. They were out today, went through pretty much the whole west side and got less than a truckload full, but we will send those out for the balance of this week and through next week, and then we'll shut it down. Keep in mind that we don't have any snow anticipated, but it is Northeast Ohio. But those trucks that pull the leaf backs are also the same trucks that we would put on the road for salting and plowing. But we do recommend that residents start to bag their leaves, put them in the curbs, and our sanitation teams will pick those up.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Mr. Brubaker? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. Finance Director Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to take a moment to congratulate Jack on your retirement. Jack, it's been a real pleasure to serve with you over the last 30-plus years, I guess. I've been here 36, so it's been at least 30 that I've served with you. I've considered you not only a great council person, but a great friend, and I wish you all the best. And to Mark and Judy, thank you for your service and best wishes to you. And other than that, I just wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Pileski? Very good. Law Director Deary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd echo the words of Finance Director Pileski especially, and also of Mr. Brubaker and the Mayor. Congratulations, Mr. Baird, and also best wishes to Mr. Jesse and Mrs. Keys, and happy holidays to everybody, and stay healthy. And lastly, although the building has been buttoned down, if for some reason anybody on council or anybody in the public needs to reach the law director's office, we are open to the public. My staff is there, as well as members of the prosecutor's office who are over at Elyria Muni Court. So feel free to reach out, and we'll make arrangements to get what you need taken care of. And that's it.
Any questions for Ms. Deary? I do want to say I did mention something just to the mayor now. And we talked earlier, Law Director Deary, if there's any movement within the state as far as our virtual meetings based on this outbreak. If you can kind of just keep us informed as well as the administration.
Through you, Mr. President, there's been nothing on the horizon as of yet by way of the General Assembly, but I would imagine that this is evolving, and I will certainly keep you updated if there are any updates to let you know about.
All right, very good, thank you. Elyria Police Department, Chief Pelko.
Good evening. We too at the Police Department would like to thank Mr. Baird, Mr. Jesse, and Mrs. Keys for your service and everything you've done for the Police Department over the years. So we thank you for your service. I've got two things. Tomorrow we're going to be doing a press conference in collaboration with the schools and the mayor in regards to the uptick in school threats that we've been having. That's going to be at 1 o'clock at the Elyria School Administration Building. So hopefully it'll be an educational piece and maybe calm some things down for us. The second note, we had Lieutenant Dina Baker retire on Friday. She served 25 years with our police department. She was our training lieutenant. She pretty much revamped our training program, and I just want to commend her for everything she's done for us and wish her the best in her retirement.
Very good. Any questions for the chief? Mr. Tollett?
Through you, Mr. President. And this goes for both chiefs, Chief Pelko and Chief Pernesti. In the State House, in both chambers, the new concealed carry law has passed, and they've committed to override a veto if the governor vetoes it, and they have the votes to do it. What I'm asking of you is if there is something as a city council that we could do to help you in your jobs moving forward. What I mean by that, any type legislation outside of that law. I know we can't override that law, but if there's something that we can do to assist you, why bring up the fire department as well? There could be a tremendous amount more guns for motor vehicle accidents when you show up on the scene. A lot of different scenarios. So if there's something that we can do, if you would think about that and bring that to our attention. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald?
Chief Pelko, I have to apologize a little bit. I called, I guess I've been thinking so much that there should be a no left-hand turn going into Northwood if you're going northbound. And of course, after you called and told me and said, nope, there's no sign, then I started doing my research, and it's all in the making. So I'm thinking the signs were there, but they will be put up. There's going to be about 3 signs and some bumpers on the ground. So they're going to get that taken care of. So I'm sorry I wasted your time.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
I did have another comment for Chief Pelko in regards to the last meeting that was here with the residents in regards to the dog pound. Has there been any? What's that? No, was it not the dog pound? What's the bar over there at the
Doghouse.
Doghouse, excuse me. Has there been any? Well, right now we need all the help in the dog pound. But with that being said, was there been any more discussions with those residents as far as?
So I can tell you this, when we go up there, we don't hear any loud music. So we're limited on what we can do, but we've been going up there, we've been doing directed patrols up there, and they've been advised to cite if there's any violations. So
Okay.
We're still monitoring it.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any other questions for Chief Pelko? Thank you, Chief. Elyria Fire Department, Chief Pernesti.
Good evening. Just want to extend our best wishes to our outgoing council members. Councilman Jesse, thank you for everything you've done. Councilwoman Keys, thank you. And Councilman Baird, one word, class. You're a class act. That's 2 words. You're a class act. Thank you for everything you've done for the city. So I appreciate it. And as a citizen, I really mean that too, of the city. So thank you. Just want to thank the Utilities and Finance for passing along the grant for the ambulance. Appreciate that. I think it is a good thing moving forward. We'll have lots of discussion on that moving forward as far as its utilization if we get the grant. Also, we did hire 8 new firefighters, actually 9. One is in Kuwait still serving. He'll be coming on board in February. And today we swore in 8, and one of which has been activated in the National Guard because of COVID. But want to express my appreciation to the administration, to finance, to everybody involved for getting these members on board. It's sorely needed. It's going to alleviate a lot of overworked firefighters who are tired of working the overtime. So it's going to boost us tremendously. So I just wanted to say thank you with that. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Any questions for Chief Prenesti? Mr. Oswald?
I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 6 months. Somebody had called me. We'd had a discussion about the 911 building. And he was saying that in this, the computer rooms and things, there was no type of fire suppression. And we got into the different forms of suppression and what you can and can't do. Well, he was explaining everything, and I forget who it was, if the lieutenant that I was dealing with. And it come to the point that he says, well, they will be setting up training to let everybody know how to use the fire extinguishers in case of a fire. And I was just wondering if all that training had been done, if they're following through with that. Thank you.
The training hasn't come from my department yet, but we've been extremely busy, and I've had some people out, and if we do it, it's not going to be until the first of the year. I just don't have the people right now, but I'll look into it and see what we got going on.
Thank you, Chief. Engineering, Mr. Schneider. Ms. Yusefi, Human Resources. Thank you, Ms. Yusefi. Mr. Corazon, Wastewater.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Mr. Baird, thank you for all of your support over the years. It's greatly appreciated. Mr. Keys, Mr. Jesse, thank you very much. I wish you all the best. Just as an update, I spoke with our consulting engineers on the Windward Siphon project, and they informed me that from the flow monitoring data that they have, they say that they have sufficient data to move towards a design on that siphon replacement project. So they don't need additional flow monitoring data. They needed some more information on the Abbey North station. I got that done today. And they have a couple questions about the Gulf Road lift station. We'll get that hammered out over the next couple of days. But just want to pass that on. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Corazon? Mr. Oswald.
So do we have the funding to go ahead and take care of these projects, or do we have to wait for money to come in? How is that going to happen?
No, right now our goal is to get both for this project and also possible relief sewer for the Abbey North station going back to Whitman designed and on paper so that if grant monies do become available, then we'll be able to take advantage of that. That's the goal.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Corazon.
Thank you.
President's referrals and remonstrances. Item number 1, Planning Commission Community Development. Item number 2, Planning Commission Community Development. Item number 3, Community Development. Item number 4, Community Development. Item number 5, Community Development. Item number 6, Community Development. Item number 7, Community Development and Finance Committee. Item number 8, Community Development and Finance Committee. Item number 9, Community Development and Utilities Committee. Item number 10, Community Development and Utilities Committee. Item number 11, Finance Committee. Item number 12, Finance Committee and Utilities Committee. And item number 13, Utility Safety and Environment Committee. Items 14 received and placed on file in the clerk's office. Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby.
There's one, Terry Schilling, 33rd Street, Jack Baird, and thanks.
Mr. Schilling, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Terry S. Schilling, but I am more known as Pete Schilling. And sometimes it's confusing because people have asked me if I knew Pete Schilling when they were talking to Terry Schilling. And I'd have to tell them, yeah, I know him pretty well, and sometimes I don't want to know him. But anyway, I want to say hello to all members of council, president, of course, our city officials. I see the mayor is gone. I hope everybody has a good holiday. Now, I am here primarily for one reason. You know, for many years, there have been a group of people that meet around town for breakfast. And I will tell you that probably the most original one that is still around is Mr. Jack Baird. He probably started going to breakfast when it used to be the Paradise, and he was working for Lorain County Bank. Now, how many years ago was that, Jack?
That'd go back to 1972.
And I think the breakfast has pretty much continued on, and there's a group of us, and there's two here with us, Nick Abraham and John Haynes, and I think Judge Janice are here, and we've been meeting at Hazel's most of the time, and so I think it was only appropriate that somebody from that group came and wished Jack all the best. Now, Jack has been council person for 37 years, but you know the one thing about Jack is that he's been a council person for the entire city. You know, we've had council people that have, their main thing was to say no, because they knew what was going to be on the agenda was going to be passed, so it didn't make any difference, but it was self-serving no. So I just say to all of you remaining council people, after going through and listening and reading about the potential people that are coming on council, good luck, and I hope you remember your main goal, the city of Elyria. The citizens of the city of Elyria need your help, and I wish you well. Ms. Keys, I've known for a long time. Good luck to you. Mr. Jesse, the same. And thank you for allowing me to come up and speak. And Jack, I wish you well. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. Schilling, for those kind words.
That was all the petitions from the lobby.
Petitions and remonstrances from council members.
There are none.
Reports of standing and special committees.
There are none.
Resolutions first reading.
There are none.
Resolutions second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the transfer of grant funds from the Nord Family Foundation via donation to the Elyria Community Partnership, a community development corporation.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-191. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional service agreement with the Makovich and Pasuti Architects, Inc. to provide architectural development and visualization services for the city of Elyria on a needed basis.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Point of order, Mr. Tolet, if I could. I know that the mayor had kind of stepped out, and I don't see the safety service director here, but I guess moving forward with this piece of legislation, if that we could, you know, be informed through council what projects are being talked about so that we know what developmental concepts or ideas that are coming through so that we can kind of be informed with that. So I'm sure the meeting minutes will hear, and I'll have an outreach to the mayor to make sure that, you know, we can have that request.
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor on the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-192. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 5-year agreement with Axon Enterprises, Inc. for a virtual training program for the Elyria Police Department.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-193. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional services agreement with McCully and Company LLC for grant consulting and writing, government and public relations, and resource development services.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-194. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional services agreement with Rodsell and Andrus, a legal professional association for legal counseling and labor matters.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-195. Sponsored by Finance, Utility, Safety, and Environment. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application and accept, if offered, an assistance to Firefighters grant program for the purchase of an ambulance rescue squad for the Elyria Fire Department and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-196. Sponsored by Finance and Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, to perform microsurfacing on State Route 57.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-197. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2016-6, known as the Salary Ordinance, to incorporate an increase to the federal minimum wage for certain pay grades and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. Point of order, I didn't get ahead of that, Mr. Tolet. We had some discussion in regards to, I know we're going through our labor negotiations, and here this is asked me in front of us. And
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
You're off.
Mr. President,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, through you, Mr. President, this is with.
Oh, the minimum
respect
wage.
to the minimum
My
wage.
apologies. My apologies. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-198. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance ratifying and authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement between the City of Elyria, Local 277, Ohio Council 8, of the American Federation of State of County and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
This is the one, Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Baird. Is there discussion? Yes. We had discussion on this last Monday in our Finance Committee, and we all value, obviously, our employees and the work that they do, and this is a tough environment in the 2020 year, and we support all their efforts and the work that they do for all our employees. A big concern for me is that, you know, we're going through these conversations and negotiations, and we just, we're in a tough spot here in the next 2 to 3 years with our employer has already left Bendix. That's 1.5 million, if not more, maybe 1.8 and we've been informed by, you know, finance director for many years that this was forthcoming. And so in the coming years here, we're going to have to take a hard look at where we're at financially, because even though we've received this windfall from the ARPA funds, it's hard to replace $1.8 million. And we're going to have to be really cognizant of that moving forward. And, you know, with all these negotiations, trying to get the best deal for both, but, you know, for the city and looking at our interests, because we know what's coming down the line. That's all I have to say on that. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called on the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-199. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending Ordinance 2016-6, known as the Salary Ordinance, to amend the wages of Local 277, Ohio Council 8, of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Baird. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-2000.
200?
200, excuse me.
Wow. I don't
Added
know.
a
Mr.
zero.
Baird, will you still be here?
Yeah.
All these salary increases just got me confused.
Oh, you got one in.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending Ordinance 2021-154 to change funds listed in Section 2 for the purchase of Scott x3 Pro self-contained breathing apparatus, scuba cylinders, and fill station for the Elyria Fire Department and declare an emergency.
Mrs. Mitchell? Excuse me? Is this finance or?
Finance. Finance.
It's
My
finance.
apologies, finance. Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Baird. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-201. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2021-155 to change funds listed in Section 2 for the purchase of 2 2022 rear-loading garbage trucks for the Sanitation Department and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-202. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the Finance Director to transfer funds to the specified accounts.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-203. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending ordinance 2021-15, known as the 2021 Permanent Appropriations Ordinance, to change funds in various accounts.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-204. Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance to fix temporary appropriations for the first 3 months of the Elyria 2022 and other expenses of the city of Elyria.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Baird. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-205.
Ordinance the second reading.
None.
There are none?
Ordinance is third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development requests the presence of the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Building Inspector, and Engineer on Monday, 1/10, 6 p.m., Council Chambers. All items referred. Joint CD Finance requests the mayor, law director, finance director, safety service director, and engineer on Monday, 1/10, immediately following community development. Items referred. Finance requests the mayor, law director, finance director, safety service director, and engineer on Monday, 1/10, immediately following the joint meeting. All items referred. Utility, safety, and environment requests the law director, safety service director, and engineer on Wednesday, 1/19, 6 p.m. All items referred. And strategic planning requests the mayor, safety service director, finance director, and law director on Monday, 1/3, immediately following full council. All items referred.
Very good. Miscellaneous and unfinished business. Mr. Callahan.
Thank you, President Stewart, through you. I'd just like to take a few moments and recognize our 3 council members who are leaving us after tonight's meeting. I want to thank Judy Keys for her service to the city, her efforts that she put forth. She always had the right intentions. I appreciate all the good work you did and will continue to do in the city. And I want to wish you and your husband, Tom, the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Mark Jesse, I want to thank you for your service here at the City of Elyria, City Council, for your efforts that you put forth, especially for Issue 6 and many other things that a lot of people don't even know about. Those efforts are appreciated by many still in the community. We appreciate all the efforts you put forth. I wish you and your wife, Jackie, nothing but the best. Thank you. Now, Jack Baird. Jack, thank you for your friendship. Thank you for always helping me, answering my questions. Heck, I even called you today and asked you a question. Find out that Jack has served this city on city council for over 37 years. And the sad thing about that whole thing, he's just now getting the hang of it. No, in all seriousness, Jack, you continued on the legacy of your grandfather and your father. And I know they would be so proud. I know your family's proud with Mitzi here and your daughter, who's incidentally a nurse, and I was her patient a couple of years ago. She did a great job. You're welcome. You've been an excellent example on how government should be run. You've given us an example. I look up to you. Your approach that you've taken, your words of wisdom are greatly appreciated by many. And the efforts that you put out and put forth are just, I guess I get to the point where every time you put your hand up, I say, I want to know what he wants, what he's going to say now. Because we always learn something. So I want to say thank you once again. Thank you for your service. I know we're still going to see each other. You're not going to be a stranger. I want to wish you and your wife, Mitzi, the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Miss Mitchell, excuse me, Miss Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I don't have a speech wrote out like Mr. Callahan, so I'll be brief. But I wanted to say to Mrs. Keys, I have enjoyed working with you. You worked tirelessly for your ward, and you did a great job. Mr. Jesse, thank you. Because of you, we have Issue 6, and you guys know I'm a big proponent of streets, and that's how we get our streets done is with Issue 6. So thank you for that. Mr. Baird, since I've been on council, you've been sitting by my side, and he's a cut-up. He keeps me laughing. But one thing, I never thought of Mr. Baird as a Republican. He is a member of this council. And one thing I want to say, and I think everyone will agree with me, is that we respect each other. We're all friends. So I hope the new people coming in will earn that same respect and remember that we work for the citizens of Elyria. We're not self-serving. We work for the citizens of Elyria. Mr. Baird and I have disagreed more times than I can count, but we're still friends. so you can agree to disagree and not be disagreeable. So that's it. I wish you all the very best to your families, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Donna.
Well said, Ms. Mitchell. Well said. Well, I'll take this moment to, as well, kind of thank Ms. Keys. Like Donna said, your tireless effort, your commitment to the city, but it's not over. We've approached and we talked about different things and opportunities for you that I think you would do a great job at. You and your husband, Tom, have been a part of this community for many, many years. And please don't be absent to these meetings. We value your input and ideas because you have a lot to offer still. So I wish you nothing but the best of luck. Mr. Jesse, thank you as well. Like Donna said, your issue 6, you spearheaded that campaign and you inspired not only the city council, but the rest of the citizens of Elyria that it can be done. If you put forth the effort and the commitment, the impossible is possible. And you did that. And we appreciate your time and service. And as well, as I said to Ms. Keys, please don't be a stranger. You know, we'd appreciate your involvement still. Mr. Baird, 37 years is quite a milestone. And you've been a mentor to me, and more importantly, a friend. I've called you many times, and you've given me great advice, and that did not go unnoticed. And I appreciate, you know, all the efforts that you did for all these years, and you're the salt of the earth, and that's kind of what it is. And I wish you and Mitzi nothing but the best. And I know that you're going to be serving on another journey in your life, but I think you're going to be involved in the Elyria partnership community and all that. And you're still, if I can still probably call you to bounce some ideas off you and get your input, I think you would welcome that. So I wish you nothing but the best of luck, and in your new adventures and journeys that you forehold. So now you're only going to golf 7 days a week. Does anybody else have any comments or anything like that, other than the 3 councilmen? Mr. Tollett?
To Judy and Mark, on behalf of the citizens of Elyria, thank you. We all owe you, as a citizen, thank you for what you've done. To Jack, Jack was first elected in 1972 with my dad. And at the time, if I remember correctly and have my history correct, it was the darkest days of finance in the city of Elyria. And Jack and John Blevins and Vic Stewart played a part in that. I took a few notes. There were several involved at that time to work out over several years to bring the city back to its feet. And that was tremendous. And I want you to know that your legend will live on here, and you're an inspiration to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tollett. Yeah, Ms. Tollett, Ms. Keys, if you'd like to say a word.
Oh, boy. I just want to say that it has been really the honor of a lifetime to serve with this group. And I am so grateful for this, for my fellow colleagues. You took me under your wing, and you showed me the ropes. And more importantly, you became my friends. And that's not going to end here, of course not. And Mr. Baird, I think that we go back to 1983 when we started palling around together. Yep. And you really took me under your wing and helped me and called me on many occasions, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm very grateful for what I'm sure will be a continued relationship. Mr. Jesse, you were the one that kind of reeled me into this group. Many years ago, at the start of issue 6, when it was just kind of an acorn of an idea, you knocked on my door and said, Judy, what do you think of this? And I You had me hook, line, and sinker. It was a phenomenal idea. I was more than happy to work alongside you and the rest of that committee, and I'm very grateful for that time. And I thank you for your service, because you've done a phenomenal job. So, in conclusion, I want to wish all of my colleagues the very best of luck. I know that you will continue to serve admirably, and I will miss this. But a very wise man told me just this past week that sometimes you can actually do more from the outside than you can from the inside. So, that being said, you haven't seen the last of Judy Keys. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mrs. Keys. Thank you, Mrs. Keys.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
Thank you, President. Aside from important milestones with my wife and my family, and aside from a 40-year career in music that had many highlights, unquestionably the highlight of my life was working with the Issue 6 volunteers. In a time that we see today where there's so much animosity and hatred and finger-pointing and not getting along, that proved what can be done when people work together. And like I said, that, aside from family milestones, that is unquestionably the highlight of my life, and I'm so proud to have been a part of it, and so proud that so many of you up here and out in the audience were a part of it. And Judy, I remember you were one of the first people I came to, and was just looking at the picture we took at Ely Square at this exact time in 2015, and you were out there with just a handful of people, and we took that picture that became the iconic photo for all our advertisements. And meeting at our house at first with 5 or 6 people, and then more and more council members got on board, and every council member was on board. Even Mr. Lotko was on board. And like I said, it was truly inspirational, and I've valued all the time I've had here. I wish everyone the best of luck, and go Elyria.
Thank you, Mr. Jesse. Mr. Oswald, did you want to make a comment?
I'll try to make it real quick, but Jack, you know, everybody knows I don't have good hearing, but Jack will always, and I got these things on, and he still can't do it. And he nudges me when I'm doing something wrong. And then I got another Jack over here, and he's writing me messages, because, no, Kenny, he said this, not that. So I'm going to be missing one Jack, but whoever you put next to me, tell them my hearing's really bad. So just to let them know what they got to look forward to. Thank you.
I'm going to put Miss Mitchell, yeah, she'll keep you in place. Yeah. Mr. Jesse wants to say one more thing, I believe.
And how could I not have mentioned Jack in all of that? Jack was always the first person I called when there was a project, always the person that I could stop by and sit in the kitchen and kick some ideas around. Jack is an excellent friend. He's the true definition of a friend, and also as a colleague. And again, we don't necessarily agree on politics outside the city of Elyria, but for the city of Elyria, we are lockstep, and I appreciate everything that he's done and the friendship he's shown to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Jesse. Mr. Baird.
I guess it's my turn, huh?
It is your turn.
I got the loudest voice, so everybody can hear me, I guess. 37 years and 2 months, I guess, to be specific. It's been a great ride. It was very interesting. I always appreciated it. I had to train 6 mayors, you know, and I don't know how many safety service directors and finance directors. Well, I didn't have to train Root because Ted always knew more than anybody else did about it, so I couldn't train him. But the fire chiefs, police chiefs, building inspectors, engineering department, all of the departments, we're very fortunate to have the kind of staff we do. Very professional. They do what they'll say they'll do, And if you have a question, you can always find out. Long term, I go back, I served with Leo Bullocks on council and Forrest Bullocks, and goes back, Mayor Leonard Reichland was the mayor when I first started, so probably somebody goes, who's he, at this point. But always good people, Mike Keys, right up through today. And I think the biggest thing we have moving forward, we've seen the dark days, as Mr. Tillett said before. And we're still in the shadows with this COVID and so on. So we all need to be careful. As Mr. Brubaker said earlier, you have 31 people out, which that seems unbelievable, but that's the way it is. So we're going to work toward that, I'm sure. I just feel very honored to have been selected, elected by the citizens. I think that one of the things that some people have mentioned, Tom Callahan kind of mentioned, said, Jack, he says, you're the voice of reason. And I said, well, I'm not sure. I don't get that at home, but I know how. But it's nice to think that. I guess the main thing, and it was alluded to here by several, working together is the key. And I know each mayor that I've worked with, we've worked together to get things done. Maybe we had differences of opinion, but I remember the definition of politics is the art of compromise. And that seems to be going away here as of late, not locally here, but other places, as we know. So I look ahead for positive things for the city of Elyria. I know there are some things that are working to our benefit as we move forward. And with the help of each and every one of you who have done a great job, it's been a great time. The worst time was the Zoom cameras when we weren't here to see each other. And I missed that. So being with all of you is always a pleasure. We all get along. Some I know less, and some I've known for decades, so it's always an enjoyable time. And I think as we move forward, all of you know that we do this for the citizens of Elyria. And I think they appreciate it. They appreciate the honesty and the integrity that we can share. And so as we move forward, I hope that continues. That's all. Thank my wife and my daughter here. Mitzi's pretty tolerant. It depends what it's about. But anyway, and my daughter, of course, since she's a nurse, I got to pay attention. So don't drink too much and don't stay up too late. So, but other than that, everything's good. So again, thank you so much to everyone. I'll miss you, but I'll be around on occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baird.
Thank you.
Is there any other miscellaneous and unfinished business? Hearing none, Mr. Baird, would you please do us the privilege and the honor?
As Mr. Schilling has said, he said, oh my God, he said, this will be about the 7,000th time you move to adjourn. And giving forward, hearing no further business, I move we adjourn. Thank you.
Moved by Mr. Baird, second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
34 seconds.